Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, good morning. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning on Friday morning, July the 16th. I'm happy to be here. This is one child abuse survivor to another. And I'm just drinking coffee, trying to wake up. And it's been a busy week for me, so I'm getting a little bit tired. But I had out-of-town company and all kinds of stuff going on. But just glad to be able to continue to do these shows, let me tell you. The chat room's open if anybody would like to come sit in there. And we're going to continue talking about some information that I found on the website, Adult Surviving Child Abuse. It's www.asca.org.au, and from Australia. And it's a great website. There's some really different information on there that I, as I'm researching and whatnot, I can sort of see, what the similarities between the information on the different websites regarding adult survivor issues. And they had some different things to say and sort of brought a different light to things, to some of the things that we all go through as survivors of child abuse. So I really like that website. I just kind of wanted to go over it a little bit and sort of share it with people. So I'm glad that you can join me. And, this is not a professional show. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates. I don't hold any therapist certificates. I'm not a professional counselor or therapist. I'm just a private person who wants to get information out to people regarding adult survivor issues of child abuse, as I'm a survivor. And also, I'm fighting to stop child abuse. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. It's a volunteer role, and I love it, and I'm absolutely so happy to be a part of it. And so as I'm studying and researching and whatnot, I'm always running into some awesome information, and I thought, I should share it with people, and just to help people to see that there is hope, there is help out there, and that we should reach out. We should not continue to suffer in silence and have to feel that maybe we're alone and that there's no real help for us, because there is. But it's a matter of just taking that first step, towards healing. And so it's not a professional show. You have to listen at your own discretion. It's very sensitive, the topics of abuse, and I'm so used to talking about it, and I'm used to dealing with it. Any survivor that has survived child abuse would be somewhat used to it unless they blocked it out. And so that's why you have to listen at your own discretion, because you could be triggered. This information can trigger people, and survivors, who may not be that far along in their journey. Right? So you want to be very careful what you're listening to, especially with this stuff. If you haven't done a whole lot of healing, and you're just beginning your healing journey, then you have to be careful about what you're listening to and what you're reading. Make sure that you have a friend with you. Don't listen to this stuff and read these different types of, workbooks and whatnot, Survivor to Thriver and different workbooks out there alone. Make sure that you are safe and that you're comfortable when you are listening to something like this, because it could trigger you, and then, you might be upset, and nobody wants that, right? I'm safe to do this kind of stuff, but I've come far enough along in my healing, and so that's why I can face it. But there's people out there who haven't quite come this far, so you have to be very, very careful what you're listening to and what you're looking at, because it can trigger you. So that's you have to listen at your own discretion and turn it off. If it makes you uncomfortable, then you have to turn it off, and you would not be hurting my feelings, right? And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I ask that you have some, the permission from someone who's an adult, right? A parent, a caregiver, if you have one who cares, which I know sometimes we don't. School counselor, guide, a coach, mentor, someone in your life who can listen to the show and see if it's okay that for you to listen to it, because there's a lot of adult material on here, even though it is really ultimately about saving children's lives, really, and helping to stop child abuse. But I don't know how young the people are who are listening to my shows, on the players, wherever they are. So you want to have permission to listen to my show, because I'm fighting to save children's lives every day. And there's so many crazy, sick child sexual predators out there, about 750,000 of them, according to the FBI, online at any given time. And you have to keep yourself safe when you're online, and you have to be careful what you're listening to and what you're getting involved in. And you want to make sure that you have someone listen to the show with you, just in case you have questions about what we're talking about. And then they can help you get the answers, to find the answers that you need, because abuse is not talked about very often. Mainly we hear about abuse after the fact when you see these headlines and whatnot in the newspaper or on the news about children who have been killed and murdered at the hands of their parents or caregivers, and or abused and are in the hospital due to the injuries related from the abuse, right? So we never really hear anything after that, and we never hear anything on child abuse prevention. We never hear anything on adult survivors of child abuse and the issues that surround it. And so, that's why it's a sensitive topic. Not very many people want to talk about it, and not very many people want to deal with it. But it's happening. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys. Generally, that's the stats around North America anyway, for regarding child abuse, and especially child sexual abuse. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys will experience some form of child sexual abuse before the age of 18. And those stats pretty much are very much across the board the same for physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and psychological abuse. It all runs about the same. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys, somewhere in there. Some websites say 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 7 boys, and others say 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys. So, it just depends on what you're looking at. But it's all right in there. So that's just the whole issue. There's a lot of people who have been abused, but yet nobody wants to talk about it. And nobody wants to discuss it because it's so painful, right? And so that's why I'm doing these shows, really, just because this has to stop. And the only way we can stop it is to break the silence and get some help, right? If you're a survivor of child abuse, you really, deserve to have a good life. You did not deserve the abuse, and so, and the abusers do not deserve to go free. They really don't. And it's just unfortunate that silence really keeps the abuser looking like, an upstanding citizen when actually they're not. And, survivors just hiding away their pain, and nobody knows what happened to them. See, so silence is just a huge issue, and I think that if we're ever going to change this thing, then we all have to start talking about it. So that's why I'm doing these shows. So, we'll get right on with this. I'm glad that you can be here and join me, and I'll give you the link again to where we're going. It's the Adults Surviving Child Abuse, ASCA.org.au. And it's a great website. We finished up looking at the section with life problems and abuse yesterday. And then there's impact of child abuse and impact on the physiology of the brain. And there's a whole bunch of good information on here. There's like recovered memories and traumatic amnesia. And then they have ASCA publications and submissions, podcasts, and all kinds of stuff here. Pathways through which adult health can be compromised, all kinds of stuff here. This is a great website, and I highly recommend everybody go check it out. And I just wanted to read a few things from it. I'm picking a few things here and there just to kind of go over that I think is interesting that I haven't seen, sort of worded this way or presented this way. So it's a good website. I like it. And so we're going to start just looking at this one section called impact of child abuse, because they talk a little bit about it here. And I've obviously talked a lot about this, but this is presented a little bit differently. It's quite interesting. It says, the USA Surgeon General states under the category of mental health, severe and repeated trauma during youth may have enduring effects upon both neurobiological and psychological development, altering stress responsivity, and altering adult behavior patterns. These individuals experience a greatly increased risk of mood, anxiety, and personality disorders throughout adult life. And in recent years, there has been increased awareness of the numerous potential problems associated with child abuse, and this has been coupled with alarming increases in the prevalence of abuse reports and substantiated cases. Approximately 35% to 70% of female mental health patients on being questioned self-reported a childhood history of abuse. And that's from Briere, B-R-I-E-R-E, 2004. And it says, when humans are young, their world often revolves around their parents. Parents are the primary source of safety and security, of love and understanding, of nurturance and support. Child abuse violates the trust that is at the heart of the child's relationship with the world. And that's from Walker, 1994. It says, when this primary relationship is one of betrayal, a negative schema or set of beliefs develops. And this negative core schema that a survivor adopts can fundamentally affect an individual's capacity to establish and sustain significant attachments throughout life. And survivors often experience conflictual relationships and chaotic lifestyles, frequently report difficulties forming adult intimate attachments, and display behaviors that threaten and disrupt close relationships. Henderson, 2006. And it says here, many survivors' lives are characterized by frequent crises such as job disappointments, relocations, failed relationships, and financial setbacks, many the result of unresolved childhood abuse issues. The reasons for this are complex, but for many survivors, the ongoing internal chaos prevents the establishment of regularity, predictability, and consistency. And many survivors function in crisis mode, responding with stopgap measures which fail to resolve the underlying issues. And this can be both exhausting and dispiriting and can contribute to feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. I know for myself this is all very true, you know what I mean? Trying to deal, not getting any help, obviously, seeing any kind of counselors or therapists, you know. I was just dealing with everything on my own. And, you know, quite often, you know, I just never really thought of the word self-sabotage before, but when I started looking around at all these websites, you know, probably around a year ago, I started to see that, you know, what I was doing was self-sabotaging. I didn't even realize that, you know, it was just part of my life. So, you know, if I was unhappy at a job, instead of just trying to maybe move within the company, you know, get out of the department I was in, change departments or change restaurants or whatever, I would just quit, you know what I mean? And I would just be like, and it would all be because of how I was feeling inside, and it would all stem back to my childhood. You know what I mean? Because it would be like I was feeling like I was being abused again. You know what I mean? I was being mistreated again, and I was like, I'm not taking this. I'm not tolerating it. And so instead of working it out and learning how to, you know, especially like confrontation and stuff like that, just learning how to communicate with people, you know, in a confrontational situation properly, I would just quit, you know, and a lot of people would have to feel my wrath when I was quitting because I would tell them like how I felt, you know what I mean? And so, you know, I'd just lose these jobs, you know, because I'd just give up on it. I'd just be like, oh, forget it, I don't want to work there anyway. You know, so I'd lose the opportunities for pensions and lose the opportunity for, you know, for different things that, you know, the job was pretty good and I could have just transferred within. But, you know, we just do what we do. But the sad thing is that you keep doing that, and before you know it, you know, your resume doesn't look too good because you just bounce around all the time, even though you might be a really hard worker. It's just that people ask you, why did you leave your last job? And mine were always complaints. You know, well, I was unhappy with this, I was unhappy with that. So I never really developed any way to, I never really developed any kind of skills as far as confrontation went, and learning how to tell someone that I didn't like what they were doing. You know, that was a little bit hard for me because growing up in an abusive home, survivors, you know, if you're abused as a child, you know, your parents or caregivers, whoever was abusing you, didn't care that you didn't like what was going on. You know, I used to, you know, if I complained, I'd be beaten, right? And so if I even had a look on my face that didn't look appropriate to my mom, I'd be beaten. So I had to keep a straight face. I had to put a smile on my face. She would beat the crap out of me and then tell me that I had to smile. And then if I didn't smile, she'd beat me some more. And so I had, after they do that to you for a while, you start to, you're conditioned to take their abuse and smile. You know what I mean? So that's how I grew up. So I just learned to roll with the punches and learn to deal with it. Go to school and smile. You know what I mean? All my photos, I'm smiling, and that's because that's what our parents did to us. You know what I mean? My sister's a witness to that. Because my mom did the same thing to her as well. So, you know, we didn't, you know, we had to just tolerate it. We were not allowed to speak out against it, and we weren't allowed to even deal with it. We were made to just take it, and that's it. So as an adult, I have a real hard time with confrontation and, you know, allowing myself, without completely exploding off the handle and just quitting and leaving the job. I have a hard time expressing myself to my boss, my supervisor, right? Whoever is in charge, whoever I need to get something resolved with, you know, because I'm not used to being allowed to voice my opinion in that type of situation where someone has control over me, because bosses and supervisors have that control, see? So, you know, it's very, very difficult, and I have had to learn to work through it. I'm a little better now than I was, you know what I mean, just because I'm getting better, but it used to be horrible. I used to not be able to deal with it at all. And that's why I really wasn't interested in relationships with a partner. because having a relationship with with a guy for me, it just meant that person might have control on me, and that would give them the upper hand. And so I always usually broke off the relationship before they had a chance, because I'd be like, well, this way if I break it off, then he can't hurt me. And so I could never develop these relationships with anybody because I'd break it off before anybody had the chance to hurt me, which they might have not. That might have not been their motive. They might have really truly been cared for me, but my thinking was that I'm not going to allow myself to be hurt, so I'm going to hurt them first, or I'll break it off first. So it's developing these relationships. It says here. It says adult survivors often experience conflictual relationships and chaotic lifestyles, frequently reporting difficulties forming adult intimate attachments and display behaviors that threaten and disrupt close relationships. So, this is all stuff that I can relate to. You know what I mean? I'm sure that most of us can. And we can learn, over time to work through this stuff. And especially if you really search it out, and if you need, eventually I'd like to talk to a counselor when I get some money. I might very well do that. I don't have any benefits or anything, so I can't even go right now, and I feel like I'm okay, but I would certainly like to talk to somebody eventually, right? So it's hard. It's very, very hard, this day-to-day walk, right? But we can do it, and that's the whole issue. I know too many survivors who have survived just the most horrific abuse who are doing it. They're walking it out. They're good examples for me, and that's the whole issue. I just wanted to be sort of that, but coming behind them to say, hey, we can do it, because I do believe that. We just have to hang in there, and we have to get help, right? And they say here, many survivors' lives are characterized by frequent crises such as job loss. Oh, okay, we went through that. Relocations, failed relationships, financial setbacks. So see, because I quit my jobs, and I don't ever hardly give, not even 2 weeks at that point, because I'm so angry at my job. So I'm like, okay, I'm leaving, so I'll give, I sometimes don't give notice at all. So, I find myself, I'm always in a bit of financial difficulty, you know what I mean? Because I never... I just don't set myself up for positive stuff, you know what I mean? I kind of create this little microcosm, sort of a mess of a world that I live in, you know what I mean? So I'm finding peace in my heart, but I still have to work on all these other things, you know what I mean, that I can see, that I can address in my own life, you know what I mean, that I'm still kind of self-sabotaging in, right? And so it's very important that we do learn to recognize these things if we really want to move forward and get ourselves some help. Because it's very, very, this is the thing. This is why we have to stop child abuse, because then we don't have to be dealing with these adult survivor issues. I think this is ridiculous. I can't believe that the whole world is not standing up, shouting out, saying, we have to stop child abuse, you know what I mean? Because 1 out of 3 girls and 1 out of 6 boys is abused. And that's not cool. Those numbers need to change. It needs to be 0, 0. You know what I mean? This is absolutely ridiculous that there's not more work being done to stop child abuse. There's lots of work being done, but it's not nationwide. It's little pockets, little tiny groups. They really need a whole new think tank, a whole new group of people to come in and start looking at the issues. What's wrong with the picture? $104 billion being pumped into the system every year because of child abuse. And why are we doing this? We should take the $104 billion and stop child abuse. And then we don't have to keep pumping out the $104 billion for these adult survivor issues and these people having these horrible, painful lives due to the abuse that they suffered. So this is the whole thing. It really bothers me, and I, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it says here, Professor Bessel Vanderkolk, Vanderkolk, Harvard Medical School conducted a 5-year study on 528 trauma patients from American hospitals. And this study identified a range of symptoms that correlated well with prolonged severe childhood sexual abuse. And these symptoms were the inability to regulate emotions like rage and terror, along with intense suicidal feelings, somatic disorder, negative self-perception, poor relationships, chronic feelings of isolation, despair and hopelessness, and dissociation and amnesia. It says the implications are that real-world childhood trauma may be responsible for many psychopathologies, usually considered to have endogenous origins, including excuse me, including various kinds of phobic depressive, anxiety and eating disorders, not to mention borderline personality, antisocial personality, and multiple personality disorder. And so that's what Professor Bessel van der Kolk from Harvard Medical School was saying, because they did a study of a 5-year study of 528 trauma patients. So, that's well, obviously, if you've experienced childhood sexual abuse, then obviously, anybody who's experienced that would have some of these problems. Maybe not all of them, but some of this stuff would definitely be present. You know what I mean? And it's absolutely horrible. That's the whole issue. We really have to stop this. You know what I mean? And it's going to take all of us, and we can't put video cameras in everybody's home and be monitoring them to make sure they're not abusing their children. The point being is we got to educate people. Education, I really believe, is the key, and they got to stop pushing it under the carpet like it's so taboo to talk about child abuse. Oh, we don't want to hear about child abuse. Well, take your ignorant, backward-thinking mind and stick it somewhere, because we want to stop child abuse, and the only way we're going to do it is to get the public to start talking about it, because these are people that are abusing their children, and they need to know that it's not right, and the laws need to change, so that these parents know who are doing this, and these family members who are abusing. It's not always the parents, it's sometimes a sibling or another relative, right? Whoever the caregiver is or whoever's abusing these children are going to pay very, very big time in the courts. They're going to get heavy sentences. They're going to be put away for many, many, many years. I think it would stop some. It wouldn't stop all of it. But hey, if we can stop some, that's great. And then the rest is just going to have to be education within the community. We're going to have to start developing programs, to reach these families who are really out there, who are really not able to cope. You know what I mean? And get help for these children. And the parents. If you don't help the parents, you're not helping the children, because the parents will just continue to pop out kids. Even if you remove those kids from that home, they will turn around and they will have 2 or 3 more and do the same thing to them. So that's the whole issue. Or they'll get a hold of somebody else's children in another marriage or another relationship, and they'll just do the same thing, because abusers are just abusers. And if they don't get help, they will continue to do what they do, because they obviously can't help themselves, right? They need help. So that's the whole problem. So, it's going to be a long journey, this whole correcting of this issue. But I really think that we can do it, and I hope that everybody will get on the bandwagon and start talking about this, and start getting involved in your own communities and looking around in your own life to make sure that children in your life are not being abused. And then if they are, you have to do something, because these children do not deserve this. You know what I mean? They don't. And to sit there and think that they do, and there's people that do. There's people out there that think it's perfectly okay to do all of this stuff to a child, and they make me sick, sick to my stomach. I think that they should have to go through it, and then we'll see just how much they agree with it. You know what I mean? So there's people out there that just like to minimize abuse, right? Oh, abuse, no big deal. I know. I've talked to people, and there's people in my own family that like to minimize it, because they don't want to have to deal with the fact that they abuse their own children. You know what I mean? So, or that they're abusive people, because they never got any help, and because they grew up in the same house I did, being taught how to abuse people, and how to abuse yourself and how to kill yourself, they agree with it, because they're warped. You know what I mean? Anybody who would agree that it's okay to abuse your children is sick. There's something wrong with them. That's why I'm fighting for all human rights, not just child rights, but human rights. This is ridiculous that people are treating each other this way. And, we have to do something about it. But see, adults have the right, adults can get out. My mom could have got out. She could have left my dad. There's no reason why she had to stay in that marriage, or keep the kids around and abuse us like she did, and him too, right? They didn't have to do that, but they did. They chose to. But the thing is we don't have to do that. It's a choice that you make. Abusers choose to abuse, and they, you know what I mean? It's a choice. So, there's people, adults have the option to get out. And sometimes they, sadly enough, we know with domestic violence situations, they have to fear for their life if they leave the abuser. But if they don't, they have to fear for their life anyway, because, if the abuser is going to kill you if you leave, they're going to kill you when you're there. If the abuser is that violent that they're going to kill you if you leave, then you better be looking over your shoulder while you're there, because it means that they'll kill you anyway, because they don't care. So that's the whole issue with domestic violence, and people just need to get themselves safe. You know what I mean? And their children, right? Get into some sort of protection plan, witness protection plan or something. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to lose your life to some crazy psycho abuser, right? And that's the thing. It's not right, right? It's just not right. And children don't have a voice. They got to sit there and take this garbage. You know what I mean? Unless somebody's going to stand up for them and say, look, this is wrong, the way you're treating your children. I'm phoning the authorities, and you're going to jail. You know what I mean? Somebody needs to do something. There's too many people turning a blind eye. And people that know that there's family problems, and yet they don't question the bruises. They don't question the child sitting there crying. They don't question the children out in the front yard with no clean clothes, filthy, dirty, no food. They don't question, anything. They just don't question it. Why? You know what I mean? If you know family members are having problems, there's chances are there will be some form of abuse, because it's all related. You know what I mean? So we have to start looking around at the children in our own lives and in our own world and make sure that they're not being abused, right? That's why we have to know the signs and symptoms. We really do, and what to look for. So we'll keep going here. The relationship, there's another little section of this. The relationship between childhood trauma and later health concerns has been the subject of a number of studies. Research has found that childhood experiences of abuse contribute to the likelihood of depression, anxiety disorders, addictions, personality disorders, and that's from Spilla, Makara, Kozak, and Urbanska, 2008. Eating disorders, sexual disorders, and suicidal behavior from Draper et al., 2007. A study by Palmer, Brown, Ray, Grant, and Laughlin. So these are just studies that they did with 384 survivors of childhood abuse, found that survivors of child abuse tended to be depressed, have low self-esteem, and to have problems with family functioning. A recent study found that almost 76% of adults reporting childhood physical abuse and neglect have at least one psychiatric disorder in their lifetime, and nearly 50% have 3 or more psychiatric disorders. That's from Harper et al., 2007. Adults with abuse histories also present with physical problems more frequently than those who have not experienced abuse. Well, that's for sure. I mean, you think about it. Growing up in an abused in a home, physically, emotionally, psychologically, right, sexually, it takes its toll on the body. The stresses. Children are not, the body's not meant to handle that kind of stuff. Even adults, if you kick an adult around, it will wear on them as well. But when you beat on a child like that, they can't. Their little hearts and their little bodies cannot tolerate that. It causes severe stress to the heart, and because when you're being attacked like that, all of your blood and stuff surrounds your internal organs because it's trying to protect you, right? And so it causes severe, trauma to the body, trauma to the heart, trauma to the brain. All of a sudden you're in survival mode, and your body is just being assaulted. You know what I mean? And the mind is being assaulted psychologically. Because if no one's experienced here, if you're listening and you haven't experienced a violent attack, then thank God. I'd be very happy for you, and I would hope that you never would have to experience that. But if you have experienced that on a regular basis, you would know what it does to your body and to your mind and to your heart. It puts a lot of pressure on your physical being, physical well-being, as well as your psychological well-being. You know what I mean? You're not the same after that. You're never the same. It does change the way that you think and the way that you feel and the chemicals that run through your body. You never come back from that the same, right? So that's the whole issue. We have to stop this mess. You know what I mean? Well, we have about a minute left, and thanks very much for tuning in. We'll finish this up next week, unless we have time this weekend. But otherwise, I'll be back on Monday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. with one child abuse survivor to another. And Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, I'll be on there tonight with Donna Shear, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you can tune in to that. That's here on Blog Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. And we'll be on tonight for an hour or maybe 2, just depending on how long we're going to talk. And I hope you can join us for that. Then my show comes on after that. Child abuse prevention and human rights abuse prevention is up to us. So if I can get any resources or anything for you, or just be an ear or a friend, let me know. I'm on you can send me a message here on Blog Talk Radio or get a hold of me on Facebook, right? And I did get another friend invite here today. And I'm going to go ahead and answer the message back. That's just awesome. And so, yeah, I appreciate everybody, tuning into my shows, and thank you so much for being here with me. And just remember, you're not alone. And don't suffer in silence. And don't ever give up. Keep going. Never give up. And keep reaching out for that help, for that hope, wherever you can find it, right? We do deserve it. We deserve to go on. We deserve to have a good life. And we you know what I mean? If you've suffered as a child and been abused as a child, that was not your fault. And so we need to get our lives going forward, you know what I mean, towards something that we deserve to have. So whatever your dreams are, whatever your goals are, if you haven't even set any goals or have any dreams, well, start dreaming and start getting some goals. We deserve to have a good life like everybody else out here. And so that's why, I just say I just hope that everyone will reach out and get some help, right? And don't suffer in silence. So have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.